Hello, this is Elena with Black Sheep 303 Creative, and my project today is yet another Lawn Fawn Scallop pop-up box card, with a Christmas version this time using their Fab Flower stamp set and Tim Holtz foliage dies. So on the left is the Festive Greens die set, and on the right is the Mini Holiday Greens dies. And I have punched a number of these elements, or die cut them, I guess, out of various colors of paper to just have a whole selection of elements to use to create this floral arrangement. Now, I will list on my blog post exactly how many of each I used and what the paper I die cut them out of, if you want to know the specifics. This is mostly Gina K Designs cardstock and a little bit of Lawn Fawn cardstock mixed in. I don't use every element that you see here, so like I might have 3 of something that I die cut out, but I only used 2 in the end. I didn't want to get into too much detail on here because this video is already really, really long as it is. I did draw some leaf extras onto those holly leaves with a green marker. I just followed the embossing line that is put on them by the die. That's the poinsettia. And then I will also stamp a bunch of flowers from the Lawn Fawn Fab Flowers stamp set, which is a 2-step stamping process. I'm not going to show you that stamping process because, again, it would just add way too long to the video. But I will have a video linked at the end. So there's the Fab Flowers stamp set that I've die cut out. I'll link to a video at the end, which is actually an Easter video where I show in detail how you stamp those flowers. And I will list on the blog post as well exactly how many of each of these elements I used too, because I did stamp more than I needed for that. So if you were going to replicate this exactly. And I added some glitter to those white flowers and some Tonic Nouveau drops to those berry branches that were made out of craft to, add some decoration. All right, so to assemble the box, you've got this is the die set. And you need 2 of these large structural pieces. And then I die cut 3 of these I'm going to call them inner tabs, but you really will only need 2. Like if you were going to reproduce this exactly the way I did it, the third one doesn't even show. So I wouldn't even bother with the third one. All right, so to assemble the box, you need to just fold all the scored lines that the die puts in there. And, I used a bone folder to just train them really well. Sometimes people only fold the vertical ones initially, but I use the horizontal ones too, so I actually wound up folding these as well, and we'll explain it in a second. I did leave one of them straight, but I will wind up folding that later. Now to adhere this together, I use Elizabeth Crest Designs 6mm double-sided adhesive tape, and I'm putting it onto the 2 tabs, like one each on each of the box pieces. So each box has 1 tab. And then the inner tabs have small tabs on the end, so lots of tabs today. And so I'm just folding those and training those well, and then I'm going to put adhesive on all of those as well, because we're going to need to adhere those in place. I'm going to do all 3, but again, as I mentioned, I don't think you need 3. You really only need 2 for this. And with this die set, I don't know if you could really ever do more than 3. It would be pretty tough, I think, to have space within the box once it's together. All right, so to adhere the pieces together, I'm pulling the backing off of one of the tabs on the box piece, and I'm going to line it up with the non-tabbed side of the other box piece and just press it into place. And that's where you get your structure of your box. You just have to make sure you got it lined up correctly. Now the inside, you see there's those horizontal folds. And so I use these to line up my inner tabs. So the tabs need to match that fold line on this last sort of panel on the box. So I kind of very lightly set it down and then make sure it's lined up with those horizontal folds and then press it in place. And these I spaced out, I put one in the middle and then I put one in between each of the extra spaces, but you just have to space it out kind of a third of the way for each if you're going to do 2 tabs. So you just do that with all 3 and just make sure that you line them up correctly, that they're all 3 straight, and that they all go straight across. Now you can modify this if you're feeling adventurous. I have done that in the past. But they do still need to be straight in order for the box structure to fold up correctly. Now you just remove the adhesive backing on all the remaining tabs. So the tab on the box piece and then the 3 on the inner tabs, and fold the box closed. So the one panel, and then you need to line up this outer panel to get the box together. And that is the completed structure. It is really, really easy to do. It might not look that easy, but believe me, like if you've done one, you can do a million. It's not hard at all. It's really, really easy. It's just, just maybe practice once. Okay, so I've gathered all my random foliage elements for my Christmas floral arrangement. And my technique for this, basically, on pretty much any of these box cards, is to put your large focal pieces in first. So any of these arrangements, really the key to any kind of artistic arrangement is variety of scale and color. So you need to have large elements, medium elements, and small elements. Now, a lot of the Tim Holtz foliage pieces are small, and I cut a lot of them apart. Like I don't think I really ever used anything as an entire piece. Maybe this one here. So you might have to cut them down, but that's not bad because you're basically going to be. I used a lot of the Tim Holtz dies for like sort of filler, although the poinsettias obviously were like kind of the biggest piece in the main focal image. And then this is a Fab Flowers rose with some leaves that I've added on a stem. And I'm going to adhere this onto the back. Now, I did stick that pine branch onto the back panel with some Zig 2E glue. And then I'm going to use some 3mm Elizabeth Craft Designs double-sided adhesive tape for other elements. Those are my 2 go-tos for putting things together with these boxes. So I'm going to add that to the top. Now, the pine branch hangs over on the left-hand side there. So you just have to remember, if you're going to have anything hanging off the side of the back panel, it can only hang off one side, because when you close the box shut, one side is like the side of the card. So it can't have anything sticking out of it. So just keep that in mind. If you can only have stuff hanging off of one side of the back panel. And so I'm basically just sort of combining elements together to create sort of, this would be like a filler with the like berries and the pine branch to kind of group around the larger focal elements. And I tend to put my larger focal elements in first so that I can stagger them from the back to the front of that card without covering them up to each other up too much. Because that's easy to do when this is sort of staggered back. You could easily put like a big element in front of a smaller element behind it, which is actually what I wound up doing on that third inner tab. Like the things on that were too small. You don't even really see them. And so that's why I say don't even bother with that if you're gonna reproduce this. Now I use mini clothespins all the time to hold elements in place on the inner tabs until they're dry. So you probably saw me do that there. And you can see kind of the progress I'm making. Those mini clothespins work like a charm, though, to like get while you wait for the Zig 2E glue pen to dry. It just holds it nicely onto that tab, and then you can just pull it right off. Now I'm modifying a poinsettia for the front, so I've trimmed off 2 of the petals and folded over one of the petals in front to change up the shape. But I wanted to have that element continue towards the front of the box since I have it in the middle, because you want to have your colors and your shapes, like I mentioned, you've got large, medium, and small shapes. You also want to have sort of this continuity of color that moves around in a visually pleasing manner. So like I'm going to have the red go across the box. I'm going to have whites going across the box. I will eventually have some sort of yellow color going across various elements of the box to kind of pull your eye through the arrangement and make it visually pleasing. So like if you kind of do visual triangles, but in this way you're doing it sort of 3-dimensionally, you can create a good combination of color and size and pattern. I hope that makes sense. All right, so this rose I'm going to put near the poinsettia in the middle. Now you're not really seeing a whole lot of how everything's arranged right now. It's a little tricky, but there you go. So I've got, you can see sort of some of the large elements I have in there at this point. And now I'm going to add in this poinsettia to the very, very front. So it's getting adhered to the back of the very front. There you see it right there. And I'm going to put a little bit of extra zig in and then use the mini clothespin to hold that shut to get it in, to have it dry. And then at this point, I decided I needed something more Christmassy. So I decided to die cut some snowflakes out of silver and silver foil paper. So the small one is from the winter sweater die set from Elizabeth Craft Designs. So there you see kind of like a lot of my big elements in place. And then the medium snowflakes are from the snowflakes die set from Elizabeth Craft Designs. So I didn't know how many I would use, but I cut 3 of each, and then, or 2 of each, I guess. And then these little side panels come in the Lawn Fawn box die set, and they create these little stitched panels that you just die cut them out that fit exactly inside the box flaps. And so I die cut those out of some Carta Christmas Delivery 6x6 paper pad, the paper pad. The large piece that I mentioned is Carta Christmas Plaid 12x12. That's what the box is made out of. So it all coordinates very nicely together. Now I wanted my snowflakes to stick out of the box. So to get them to stick out, I'm using some like heavy duty clear plastic packaging. I think this was like the top of a pie, maybe. So I'm just cutting it into strips, and then I'm going to adhere it onto the backs of the snowflakes. So I'm taking a little piece of 3mm double-sided adhesive tape, sticking it to the plastic. Then I'm going to remove the backing and then stick the snowflake onto the on top of it, so that the plastic is sticking down below the snowflake. And then to adhere it onto the box, I'm going to stick a little more adhesive tape to the very bottom of the plastic piece, and then press that onto the inner tab. And there you will see the snowflake sticking out on the left, up above the other elements. And because the plastic packaging is clear, it gives an optical illusion of like the element, just floating. Although, I mean, obviously you can see it, but still it's a nice optical illusion. And so I'm doing the same thing. So double-sided adhesive tape on the very top of the plastic piece, and I'm sticking the snowflake down to it. And then I will put some double-sided adhesive tape on the very bottom and press that onto the inner tab of the box to keep that snowflake in place. And there's that one on the right hand side. So you get the bigger one on the left, smaller one on the right. Now I've kind of completed, or at least I thought I had completed, my floral at this point. I've added a lot more small elements, some more snowflakes here and there, and then I also added these hearts. So I punched these out of this mini heart punch out of Gina K Designs red velvet cardstock, and I added them sort of around on the arrangement to continue some more red elements. I felt I was like a little short on red elements once I had completed a lot of it. If you want to see like exactly which elements I combined together, I will have more detailed photos of this arrangement on my blog post, so you could go there and see exactly like which dyes and flowers, like Tim Holtz elements and fab florals that I combined together on each layer to create the overall finished product. The greeting is from the Lawn Fawn Christmas Dreams stamp set. I heat embossed that in gold embossing powder. And so now I'm just combining this with the bow from the Tim Holtz dies, and I will be adhering this onto the front panel with some double-sided adhesive tape. So I use 6mm and 3mm and a little bit of Zig 2A glue pen there. And then I'll just trim off the excess that hangs off the sides. Now, I know, like, if you have watched any of my other scallop box card pop-up cards, you might know that I go a little crazy with these. So I had to add stuff to the outside as well. So I'm using the panels from the die set that go to the outside. So I've die cut out the smaller upper one from some white cardstock, and then that lower panel, the like greeting panel, is also from that Carta Christmas Delivery 6x6 paper pad, and I just die cut it. It was a little bit bigger than the die cut piece, so it just adds a little bit extra festive touch. And then on the front, I wanted to make it look like a present, so I've cut some black cardstock down to like 1/2-inch strips by, I don't know, it's probably 6 inches wide. And then I made a bow using the We Are Memory Keepers 123 punch board to go on top of it. And I'm not going to show you how I made the bow because again, that would add a lot of extra time, but I will again link to a video at the very end where I use that punch board to make a bow on another Christmas card. So if you want details on how to do that, you can click on that at the very end. So I'm just adhering this down with 10mm double-sided adhesive tape. It's to one side of the folds on those panels. And then I'm just going to adhere the bow like under the fold, under and off to the side. So the panels, when you open it, still fold down. The side panel folds around the bow, but when it's closed, it looks like a present. And so I thought it was pretty cute. So that was where I thought I was done. Like I thought I was kind of finished. But then as I looked at it, I hated that back panel. It was too messy. Like there's too much going on. The rose wasn't a big enough focal point. So I decided to change it. So I grabbed my third poinsettia and I stuck a glue dot on it and I adhered that on top of the rose. And then I took another one of the fab flowers that was in the sort of yellow linen-y color and I adhered that down behind it. And to me, that was a big improvement. Like it helped really pull that sort of linen-y yellow color all the way around and it made you really look more at the back panel. The rose was almost like a little bit too small. So despite all the roses that I stamped, I only really used one, but I thought this was a big improvement, adding those two larger pieces to the very back panel. And that is the completed project, and I hope you guys like it. I really, really love it. I think it looks a little bit Scandinavian with those hearts and the sort of yellow and white and red. And I'm Scandinavian heritage, so I really love that. So hopefully you enjoyed this and I've inspired you a little bit to try out the Lawn Fawn Scallop Pop-Up Box Die with some Christmas flowers for the season. So thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up. Supplies are linked in the video description and over on my blog. Here are those two videos I mentioned. So the one on the left is an Easter card that goes into much more great detail on how to stamp that Fab Flowers stamp set, which is awesome. And then the one on the right is a Christmas card I did not too long ago that uses that 123 punch board to create the bow in more detail. Thanks. Have a great day.